A diet meant to help people lose weight may put you at a higher risk for heart diseases. New research linked the low-carb, high-fat diet to higher levels of bad cholesterol. We're talking keto. It's double the person's risk of developing heart disease. Joining us now is Dr. Payal Kohli to talk about it. And first of all, there are those that maybe we're living without any reading or hearing about. I'm on keto. What is keto?
You know, 1 out of 5 Americans are on keto or keto-like diet, and essentially it's a diet that induces a state called ketosis. That's where the name comes from, which is a state of starvation. So normally, if you think about how our body consumes energy, it uses carbohydrates, sugar, as energy. When it doesn't have carbohydrates, it starts to break down fat to liberate the sugars and the energy that it needs. So a keto diet is basically very low in sugar, but high in fat to really encourage the body to go into that state of ketosis, starvation essentially, to break down fat.
So it would not be at all surprising to see these results of people having higher levels of bad cholesterol or heart disease. That diet sounds like it would be ticketed in that direction.
Well, you know, you'd be surprised people lose weight on it because you're breaking down carbohydrates, so they think it's better for them. But one of the reasons the researchers actually decided to study this is because they saw people coming into their clinic on the keto diet, high consumptions of saturated fat and animal products, and their cholesterols were off the chart. So in fact, the study from this weekend at the American College of Cardiology meeting showed us that your LDL, which is your super bad cholesterol, goes up, and your apolipoprotein B, which is another thing attached to the bad cholesterol, goes way up. Heart attacks, strokes, heart disease, doubled over 12 years.
I know you were there with a lot of really smart people.
Yes.
But when you say that, that's a hard sell to someone that's lost weight on keto, to say this isn't good for you. I'm glad you lost weight and you're feeling great otherwise, but by the way, you got to knock off on the bacon, the eggs, the cheese, and all the good stuff.
Well, I'd say a couple things to that. The first is this is an association, not a causation. So we know that the diet is associated with this higher risk. Now, could you be doing something else also that increases your risk, or is it a causation? That still remains to be seen. The second is that everyone responds differently.
Oh, yeah.
So some people, on average, your cholesterol will go up with the keto diet because you're consuming a lot of extra fat, but some people will actually go down. So you really want to personalize an approach here. And I would say the third and probably most important is before you start keto, or if you're on keto, you really have to talk to your doctor. Because if you think about what you're doing when you're depriving your body of carbohydrates, things like fruits and vegetables, things that have fiber, antioxidants, vitamins, we don't know the long-term effects of that. And this is one of the first peeks into the future.
So maybe you want to have a baseline and know where you are before you go in with some of that data. But also, it doesn't sound like there's a real variable here. Like you're not going to say, I want to go on keto too, which does include some of the good foods. It's like it only works if you're all in.
Pretty much. I mean, now there's varying levels of how much you restrict your carbohydrate intake. So you can go 25%, less than 10%, what have you. But it's pretty much all in. And again, the problem here is that it creates a nutritional imbalance in your body. So it works to help you lose weight, but to what end? Because you're actually becoming unhealthier, as evidenced by this association of increased risk of heart disease. So I would say portion control, getting active, those are the sort of most healthy ways to get the weight off and keep it off. Keto also, incidentally, is hard to maintain over a long period of time and has been associated with the risk of inflammatory markers.
And I've heard like there's not a lot of fiber, there's not a lot of other things in it, but there were a lot of women in this study.
Yes.
Why?
So it's very interesting. So normally in clinical trials, we have 1 out of 4 women. This had almost 3 out of 4 women. And I think that really attests to the fact that women, and the literature shows this, are more amenable to lifestyle changes, are more compliant with dietary changes as compared to men. And that's why this population was enriched for people who were sort of self-reportedly on this keto diet.
So let's talk about the history of dieting. Because your dad always had a great tip for you as far as dieting, and not about you in particular, but her dad would always tell her, eat less.
Or eat less or shut your mouth. That was his 2 things. Well, just shut your mouth or eat less.
Then we had like the hit diets, and all of a sudden diets became hot. The Atkins diet and all these things.
Yes.
Paleo and all these things.
Mediterranean.
And they're all the magic diet until they're found out to be just another kind of gimmick.
I'm going to quote your dad here. Eat less and shut your mouth. Because that's
Oh my gosh,
exactly
just
you
what
need.
Frank needs.
So just as we get older, you know, every decade of our life, our metabolism slows down, our basal metabolic energy needs go down. But what do? We either keep eating the same or eat more and move less. So every decade of our life, we actually need to cut down our calorie count, and reducing our caloric intake has been associated with higher longevity, living longer, and healthier.
We're told, though, these like the Mediterranean diet was supposed to be very healthy.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like the only way to go.
Some of them just say they want to start with lose weight. Some say this is a healthier diet. Are there diets that you might find people, you know, that you would steer people towards that might be effective and healthy?
For sure, but I wouldn't call them diets. And I think that's the misnomer. Because a diet suggests a drastic change. I would say the Mediterranean eating pattern and the DASH diet, or dietary approaches to stop hypertension, which is a low sodium diet. Those are the two that have actually proven to improve cardiovascular outcomes. But there are approaches to living where you sort of pick foods that are more favorable, you change your lifestyle accordingly, you reduce the sodium intake, you increase the potassium intake. So not necessarily something for a short period of time to lose the weight, but something to help maintain a healthy lifestyle over a decade.
And when you talk about potassium and this and that, people say, I also want to enjoy
Life.
meals. I want to enjoy my life. I want to. Or is the Mediterranean eating pattern or the DASH diet, are they flavorful?
They're extremely flavorful. In fact, I would say Mediterranean, the hummus, and you know,
Yes.
you've got your legumes,
All
you've
right.
got your beans, avocados, you know, all kinds of good stuff. So you can enjoy life. You just have to remember, if you don't, you know, give up a little bit today, you're going to pay for it later. And it's really important to be mindful of what we put inside our bodies, because food is the best first medicine.
And portion control and moving.
And it's Taco Tuesday. Sorry, that's all I could think of.
Avocado taco.
And on that
Okay,
note,
all right.
it's always good to see you. Thanks again, Dr. Payal Kohli.